Good morning, good morning, good morning, LinkedIn Live. We are live. Good morning, happy Friday. Hope you've all had a good week. If you're watching the replay, thank you for joining us. Good morning, Nicola.
Morning, Sheryl. You okay?
I'm good. How are you doing? You've had a busy week, right?
Yes, very busy week, but productive. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining. We were joking backstage. I almost wondered whether you were going to show. I know how busy you ERG leaders are with your full-time day jobs, your staff networks to lead, and now you've gone back to school as well, which we'll maybe talk about. So thank you so much for joining. Obviously, this morning we're going to be talking about the joy that is running an employee resource group or a staff network. So just to introduce Nicola Dormer. So Nicola Dormer, marketing professional from E.ON, which is an energy company here in the UK. So you're a campaign manager, right, in marketing for E.ON.
Yeah.
Been with them for like 7 years, but you've been in marketing for a long time, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Market. So my degree in marketing.
yeah,
I've worked across multiple industries and
yeah,
sectors over the years. So yeah,
yeah. Okay.
marketing is that's all I've known.
It's your bread and butter. It's your thing, which probably comes in handy actually in terms of running the staff network. You know, things like the communications and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. Which that's interesting when you've got one of those skills. You know that you need for staff network.
Mm.
How much of a benefit that is. One of the stats that I'm going to share because I always love some facts and figures. It's the accountant in me. So we talk sometimes about the benefit that employee resource groups bring, and the statistic that I shared last week was that inclusion scores tend to be higher for people that are in good, effective employee resource groups. Inclusion scores, according to a McKinsey survey, were like in the 80s, 83%, compared to employees who aren't in ERGs, which was around 75%. But what's interesting, there is an interesting statistic that if an employee is in an ERG that is ineffective, so that they're in an ERG, but maybe things aren't great, either to do with the company itself or the ERG, the inclusion score is actually lower than if
Wow.
there was no ERG at all, which is really interesting. Which is why I think it's so important. Obviously, you were one of the first on my training course for ERG leaders, so thank you for coming on that journey. But it is really important to get it right, isn't it? If you're going to do it, to do it
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah, it's crucial.
Yeah. So tell us about first of all the ERGs that are at E.ON, the
Mm.
ERGs that are at your company, and which ones you're involved in, and which ones you lead, which one you're leading.
Yeah, no problem. So E.ON, from what I'm aware of, E.ON UK have 7 different ERG groups. So
Okay.
that's there's a parent group, there's a
Mm,
menopause network, there's a
mm,
LGBT network, a
yeah.
Christian network, a
Right.
disability network, a neurodiversity network,
Mm,
and then there's the race equality network, which I'm the chair of.
right. That's
Mhm.
interesting. And do you know what? My ears pricked up when you said that there's a Christian network because
Mm.
I think you might be the first guest that's come on that's had a specific faith-based group, where
Um,
it's one faith. You might have a group that's maybe like a multi-faith, but really
mm,
interesting that you've got a Christian network. That's really interesting. And
yeah.
have they got any interesting names? Because I know sometimes some groups have got all kinds of weird. My favorite still, in terms of like as far as like pride groups go, I did an interview with Jen Scopo from the US, and
Mm.
their LGBT network was called the LGBT Cuties, which I thought
Ah,
was
that's
funny.
nice.
Yeah. You've got any interesting names, and what's your network called as well?
So the network that I chair, it's called the Embrace Network.
Okay.
Um, we've got adaptability for
Yeah.
the disability network, and I believe the LGBT network is
Okay.
LGBT Network and Friends.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Adaptability. That's an interesting one, isn't it?
yeah.
For
I
the
like that name.
Yeah, because what it's really about is that it actually turns the focus away a bit, I guess, a bit like the word accessibility, but it turns the focus away from um, focusing on the disability of the individuals, actually to
Yeah,
making the environment adaptable for those
mhm.
individuals to thrive in. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's a marketing thing right there. Using the right words. Okay, so good morning, good morning. Please feel free to put questions or just a good morning in the comments if you're tuning in as well. We'll do our best to answer those. So the question that I have to really start with, because um, it was an overriding theme that came out, on the course, from sort of like yourself and others. And also you've now gone back to school as well. So how do you juggle everything, the day job,
Yeah.
like family, leisure time, downtime with running a staff network? How do you do it all?
So I think for myself, it's a really supportive management team. So
Right.
that's the first thing that helps with anybody who does want to take on the additional responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, and it's a lesson that I'm still learning, but it's not overcommitting myself to everything. So it's good to say yes, but you don't have to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And I think planning in advance. So that's where the marketing skills do help, because that's what we're constantly doing is planning, quarters in advance. So
Yeah.
knowing what, this is what the year looks like, rather than what we're going to do next week. This is how we're going to adapt.
Yeah.
And also having a really great steer co committee. So the responsibility isn't just on myself as the
Yeah.
chair. There's a really active group of employees that are part of the steer co committee, where we share the responsibilities. I'm able to delegate responsibilities as well. So
Yeah.
I think not thinking you've got to carry it all on your shoulders yourself
Yeah.
is really important.
Yeah. See, yeah, you see, basically, you've got almost like a good sort of like mini leadership team in the staff network itself, right? That have different
Yeah.
roles. And what are some of the roles that you've got? And I don't know whether it's as specific as roles, but what are some of the, how do you divvy it up? Do you divvy it up by role, or do you maybe assign different events to different individuals? How do you do it for it to work?
What I tend to, anybody who joins this steer car, one of the things that's really important to me is understanding, what's their passion, what's driving them to join the network,
Yeah.
what is it that really interests them. And so, for example, if there's a particular event coming up that they're really passionate about, then I encourage that individual, run it, lead it. We'll be all here as a steer co to support,
Yeah.
but I really encourage people to run with their ideas and, turn their ideas into, into reality.
Yeah.
And there's some people that are amazing at running events
Yeah.
within the group, and you say to them, we want to do something on this day, and they're like, okay, leave it with me. There's
Yeah.
people that are brilliant at creating digital content. There's people that are really good at creating blog content. So it's kind of leaning into everyone's strengths rather than
Yeah.
trying to force people to do something. It's
Yeah.
just empowering them to run with their ideas. That seems to be working so far.
Yeah, which is really important. You sort of talk there about almost like getting people to lean into either what they're passionate about or where their skills are naturally, because bearing in mind that most people that are working in staff networks are volunteers. They're doing it on top of their day job. So
Yeah.
you probably don't want to get overly prescriptive. You want to go with the
Yes. Yeah.
with the flow, which is slightly different to, I know that in the US, I know that a lot of ERGs, they have a very almost like prescriptive model of, you
Okay.
will do the comms, you will do events, you will do the Slack channel, which is, maybe that works for some, but I think also because in the US it's a little bit more mature, sometimes
Yeah.
they are actually being paid a little bit extra, at least maybe even a bonus or something. That's
Oh,
the
wow.
latest I'm pushing for, actually. If you're leading staff networks, having that in at least in your bonus objectives.
Oh, I like that. That sounds good.
Yeah. Bonus objectives is where people are rewarded for going above and beyond, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's a natural thing, right? If you're,
Yeah.
contributing to the company in that way, that you have it recognised in some way. And we talked, just as we were coming on, you talked about the fact that you've just gone back to school.
Yes.
Right? So tell us a bit about that, and because it kind of does link into, leading a staff network. So tell us about the course that you just, sort of like recently started, and why, what was your inspiration for doing that, and how it's going to help, I guess, with what you do with the network.
Yeah, no worries. So a very long time ago, I done my degree in marketing, and I thought that's all I'd ever be doing, and I absolutely love it. And then I discovered the Embrace network within my company, and that's definitely ignited a passion around diversity and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally, as chair, a lot of the things that you're doing, you are leading, you're influencing change, you're engaging with decision makers. And somebody within the company mentioned to me, would you consider doing an apprenticeship? And I was like, an apprenticeship, isn't that what kids do when they leave school? And they were like, things have really changed, Nicola. I'm like, oh, okay. And then they explained to me, there's all these different levels, and because I'd done a degree, it would be like a postgraduate level. It would be something the business would, it's something that the business funds through the apprenticeship levy. And I was like, oh my God. So it literally, my eyes were open to a whole new world. And because I do have aspirations of becoming a senior leader, it just felt like a really good fit to do this. So it's the level 7 senior leadership apprenticeship course.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as you say, there's a really good fit in terms of what you're doing currently, in terms of, not only in your day job, but also like leading the network and, how you lead individuals sometimes who are not, they don't directly report into you and all of that sort of thing. How do you lead and influence those? And then, as you say, but in terms of your own professional development, wanting to get into senior leadership, it kind of fits that, doesn't it? So that it really demonstrates there is that benefit to the individual of leading the staff network, that it does give you those leadership skills if you're wanting to move into senior leadership more broadly, which is that's good. But I still don't know how you're juggling all of that.
I'm getting better at time management. I don't know if the rest of my colleagues would agree, but I'm getting better.
That's good. Well, listen, you know what? You're still smiling, so crying on the inside. No, I'm just kidding. Well, obviously, you were on the training course that I ran in September. So, gosh, it literally seems like yesterday. What was one of your biggest takeaways from the training? And I do remember a couple of aha moments, but you just play it back to me. What were some of your biggest takeaways from the training course?
So for me, there was two. I'm going to give you two. It wasn't just one. Okay. There was two really big game changers for me. I think the first one was the transformation roadmap that focused on working towards clear outcomes. That was that makes so much sense, but actually seeing it and the way that you were, sharing that with us, it was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And I think the other thing was the importance of engaging with the wider organization, not operating in silos. So it's having that stakeholder map. So just really understanding the influence and impact individuals, can have. And I think I was aware of it, but just seeing it in that format and the way that you presented that to us, it was like, oh my goodness, this is incredible.
I remember. I think it was you from memory. Did you literally sort of say? Did you say, "I'm going to start using that tomorrow" or something?
Every ERG leader needs this information, needs this content. Yes.
It's interesting because, and anybody that's watching this who is, because I think we had a project manager maybe in the course, but anybody that's watching this that comes from the kind of transformational change management, they'll think, a transformation map, a T map or a horizon map or whatever you want to call it. They'll be like, oh yeah, I get that. But bringing that, merging that with running staff networks, because what you are trying to do, you are trying to deliver change at a transformational level is what you're trying to do. So that thing of, can we try to describe what that looks like in terms of outcomes over the next few years? It can be a game changer.
And I think as well for the steerco to see that transformation roadmap, be a part of building that transformation roadmap, sharing that transformation roadmap with the executive sponsor. It just provides that real clarity. So I do need to share that with the other network leaders within the business. But absolutely fantastic.
And it helps, because going back to what you said about not being overly busy with just like doing stuff randomly, kind of
Exactly.
it helps to really plan it out, doesn't it? So that you're not like overwhelmed.
Yeah, it just gives you good focus, and you're not constantly chasing your tail, or, oh, this
Yeah.
is coming up, or we need to do, it stops you being reactive and
Yeah.
makes you be proactive.
Yeah.
And it's these types of tools that, when you're so busy doing your day-to-day, and if
Yeah.
it's not, transformation isn't your day-to-day role,
Yeah.
as soon as you see it, it's like, oh my God, that makes sense. But unless you're doing it day-to-day, you don't really think about it. But
Yeah.
these tools really can make a
Yeah.
difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, which is so interesting, because I think when companies think about the benefits of having staff networks, I think certainly at senior level, like the CEO and the HR leadership, I think they are thinking about the transformational, but I don't think that always translates into then when, the staff are briefed or the staff network is briefed. I don't think it's always seen as that. It always
Yeah,
then become about the next event and raising awareness and all of that, which
yeah,
is great, but it fits into this bigger thing
it
of
really
creating
does.
an inclusive culture,
Yeah, it forces you to, if you are operating on that very, very tactical level,
Yeah,
that roadmap forces you to look at the bigger picture.
yeah, yeah,
And it's not like a scary, like, oh my God, it's almost like, wow, okay. So
yeah,
these events actually do feed into
yeah,
this wider drive, this wider
yeah,
cause. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And it really helps to kind of link what you're doing back to your purpose as well. Like what are the
Mm,
root cause problems that you're trying to solve? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool, amazing. So we've talked about you in terms of how you manage your time and how the team works. What about sponsorship and leadership support? So that's something
Mm.
we talked about in the training, but from your perspective, how important is that, and how do you sort of maintain that for yourself?
So I think executive sponsorship, senior leadership input is vital. I
Yeah.
think it's something that's really helped the Embrace network. So our executive sponsor is our CEO, so that's Chris Norbury,
Amazing.
which is phenomenal, and he's
Yeah.
so engaged, he's so involved. And
Yeah.
then also within the steer co, we do have a number of senior leaders that are
Okay.
part of the steer co. So just understanding their perspective, or
Mhm.
they see things that we wouldn't necessarily get
Yeah.
involved with day to day. So getting
Yeah.
their views have been really helpful.
Yeah.
I think it's that, what are people saying about the networking rooms that we're not in? So
Mhm.
it's those types of things that maybe a couple of years ago I would never have thought about. But now, when you've got key people, influential people around the
Mhm.
business that are
Yeah.
either involved or saying,
Yeah.
the, what this network are doing is really helping, that
Yeah.
then helps to create that credibility and
Yeah.
trust. So I would say that every employee resource group should have some
Yeah.
kind of executive sponsorship or
Yeah.
senior leadership
Yeah.
endorsement.
Yeah, that's amazing, and amazing that you've got the CEO as your
Yeah,
executive sponsor. Because obviously the other thing is, and not making it too personal to your organisation, but you want to make sure that your executive sponsor has clout.
yeah, yes, yeah,
That's
yeah,
really important. Sometimes, I think some networks, sometimes you get a sponsor who is willing and is very supportive, but they don't necessarily have as much influence around the boardroom
mhm,
table, and so they
yeah,
can't necessarily open those doors for you or knock down some of those obstacles. It's really
yeah.
important that you have an exec sponsor with clout, and interesting that you've got other senior leaders in your steerco leadership team as
Mhm.
well, which is really good. So how,
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
so I was just going to say, and these senior leaders, they're from all different parts of the business, so
Yeah,
you've got very different viewpoints, which is
yeah,
great.
yeah.
So yeah, if you can get that, that's half the battle.
That is brilliant, and credit to you as well. And how long have you been leading the network for?
So I've been leading the network since January 2023. So
Okay.
coming up to 11 months or just
Yeah.
over 11 months.
Yeah.
So a lot of the senior leaders, the network's been around for about 2.5 years. So a lot
Okay.
of these senior leaders, they were involved with the inception of the
Yeah.
networks. They were there before myself, but that, you know, they're still involved.
Yeah.
And some of them are like, you know, we can speak at events, we
Yeah.
can help, you know, with the planning. So it's
Yeah.
however we want to utilize their support.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're very helpful.
I mean, what's interesting in terms of the timing, so it's, you know, and I guess like a lot of firms, right? So your network was started in 2020, and is that right? Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
a lot of networks, especially in the UK. You know, they've been
Mm.
going in the US for a while, but a lot of networks in the UK and other countries, you know, sort of sprung up in 2020. Would you say that the focus and the passion is still there, you know, for change, or would you say it's waned at all? How have you managed to sort of maintain that?
So I do believe the passion's still there, but I think what I've said to the steerco members is, because it's based, you know, you get involved with whatever you're passionate about.
Yeah.
So you're not forced to do anything that you don't necessarily want to do. And
Yeah.
so there's always an injection of fresh ideas.
Yeah.
And because you're not necessarily just running with somebody else's ideas,
Mm,
constantly encouraging people, if you've got an idea, if you've got something that you
yeah.
want to bring to life, let's make it happen. So I've found over the last, well, since I've been the chair,
Mm,
we've been really lucky that there is this constant injection of enthusiasm, or if somebody's really passionate about something, so
yeah.
where somebody might take a step back, another person steps in. So
Yeah.
we have been really fortunate, and
Yeah.
I think the key
Yeah.
is it's just constantly trying to get
Yeah.
new people. Don't do this thing by yourself.
Yeah.
Always try and get new people involved, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I think the
Yeah.
enthusiasm is still there. Whether
Mm,
whether it's with different people, there's
yeah.
always this drive.
Yeah. That's really interesting what you're talking about, because I think, you know, as you say, by having new people coming in, you are getting fresh ideas, and you're getting fresh energy as well,
Mm,
actually. So fresh energy, fresh ideas. Because I think what can happen in some staff networks, it can become a very sort of stale membership, or do you know what I mean? Stale in
mm.
terms of it's the same people that feel that they have to go,
Yeah,
and they may be talking about the same things, and then they're maybe not seeing change, and then they start to get a little bit discouraged and all of
yeah,
those sort of things. So, you know, your model, which sounds, it almost sounds kind of quite dynamic and flexible.
mm,
You know, it's this, you've kind of got this core that's sort of moving along, that knows where it's going, and then people kind of
yes.
jump on, you know, as and when to help push it forwards, which is perfect, right?
Yeah, and one of the other things that you know, when I became chair, it was being
Yeah.
really clear. Well, where do we want to get to towards the end of the year? What does
Yeah.
success look like for the committee? So we've got a target of where we want to get to,
Yeah.
and then each month there's you know, we're reporting on, well, this is where we said we were going to be. This is where we actually are.
Yeah.
So in the months where we might be feeling like, have we really made much difference? Have we made
Mm,
an impact? You know, the numbers then remind us we
yeah.
are driving change, we
Yeah.
are making a difference. So I think bringing the data into it, and I know that's something that you're really
Yeah.
passionate about, the
Yeah.
numbers. I
Yeah.
think that definitely helps as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to have the measures. What gets measured gets done. Is the key. And
Yeah.
also, do you celebrate wins? Do you celebrate your wins as a group?
Yes.
How
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
give us an example of, you know, even if it's just that you mention it at the meeting, or,
Mm.
you know, you have a, you know, a little high five thing. You know, how do you make sure that wins are celebrated?
I
Because
mean,
that helps drive motivation, isn't it?
absolutely. So I'm really big on that's one of my things, and it's probably more of a personal thing, really. So
Yeah.
gratitude is a really big thing for me,
Okay.
and making sure whoever I work with, whether it's in my day to day
Yeah.
or through the employee resource group,
Mm,
I always like to recognise, regardless of whatever the input is. And
yeah.
so I will. We've got this system within Eon, which is like it's like I guess it's like a gratitude system where you can send somebody a message to say thank you for, you know, your support, and then that message is flagged up to their manager. So then their manager can see, wow, this is this
Yeah.
person's input. So I
Yeah.
always like to make sure that I say personally thank you. Our executive sponsor and other senior leaders as well around the network will also recognise and make sure any person's input is not missed.
Yeah.
And I think just that constant thank you, you've done a great job. What could we do differently? Is there anything we do differently? Just
Yeah.
that constant reflection.
Yeah.
I think that also probably does help as well
Yeah.
with the enthusiasm and the drive.
Yeah, definitely. And especially, you know, as we say, especially because people are volunteering and doing this on top of their day job. So giving them that personal recognition, you know, and acknowledgement, you know, you've done really well with that, you know, and it's made this impact. That's cool. That's really cool.
And I do this monthly LinkedIn post where it's literally saying all the different things that I'm really grateful for in that previous month, and it's good
Yeah.
for me. It's good for me to self-reflect on what's gone well, but also I do like to acknowledge the different individuals or people that have helped to contribute to making, you know, my month a really good
Yeah.
month, and that's a practice that I've probably started this year.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's something that definitely for other staff network and ERG leaders, you know, a way of kind of giving those shout outs to the people that are helping to kind of run the web networks. So obviously we focus on the leaders, and there is a lot of pressure on the leaders to kind of hold things together. But actually, you know, there's a whole army of other volunteers as well that make things happen. So I love the gratitude thing. I do. I think that gratitude, the recognition is so important, because this work, you know, a bit like that statistic at the start, it's so easy for this work to, you know, for people to get despondent about
Yes.
this work, you know,
Yeah.
and so it is important to celebrate those wins, to kind of keep the positivity. That's brilliant. What have been some of the biggest learnings in running the staff network, whether that be, you know, from a personal perspective or professional, or just as a network as a whole? What have been some of the biggest learnings?
I think it's hearing different perspectives.
Hmm.
So chairing the group has forced me, whether I liked it or not, to hear different perspectives, and probably help with conflict management as well. So it's just being able to, you know, manage differing viewpoints, but
Yeah,
still come to a resolution.
yeah,
Um, and advocating for people as well. So that's something that I think that comes automatically with the role as chair.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and so I do feel I do want to really help make a difference,
yeah,
and that's something that it has definitely grown, that
yeah,
sense of responsibility of really wanting
yeah,
to help my colleagues and
mhm,
encourage and influence positive change. I
yeah,
think that's some of my biggest
yeah.
learnings. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there, you know, that you mentioned, you know, listening to other people's perspectives, conflict resolution, you know, because sometimes
Mm.
people have different views as to how to tackle things, but also, you know, and all of that, it links into, you know, coming back to the leadership apprenticeship, you know, that you said you're starting to. But the bit that I wanted to maybe focus in as well is, you talked about advocating for others,
Mm.
and there is something about, um, you know, does that take a toll, almost like emotional, you know, like on a
Mm.
personal level, the fact that you have to be almost like that support, almost like the therapist, right? In a way, for some of the individuals, that must be quite challenging at times, right?
Well, the thing is, I want to be, so
Mm,
maybe because I'm new in the role, I haven't reached to that stage where it's like this is too much. But it's almost, if I feel that there's an injustice, and this isn't even just in my role in work, this is
yeah,
me as a person as
yeah,
well. If I feel there's an injustice,
mhm,
me personally, I don't want to sit back and just let that happen.
yeah,
It's, whether it's a friend, a colleague.
yeah,
If I can't help, then I'll be completely open about that.
yeah,
But I can see potentially, if you're not if you haven't got that good balance, you're not managing your own kind of mental well-being, your time management's all over the place. I can see how it could become really overwhelming, but for me at the moment, it's fine for me.
Yeah. And good that you've got, you know, you talked about having like support from like the leadership team and your sponsorship and management. It's something that in sort of formulating the course, you know, that you came on with. Next year, we're going to be doing a residential version that is going to have emotional resilience as a fifth module. Yeah, because I think it, you know, I think as well as your own, you know, because obviously if you're in the network, you know, it affects your identity as well. You know, you're fighting for equity for your own identity, but then you're also supporting other individuals. So as you say, there is that, you know, it can take a toll in terms of your own well-being.
Yeah, and I think as well, probably because of my own personal journey, so because of my own focus on, you know, making sure mentally, you know, I've got a good balance of what I'm eating, you know, how I'm moving my body, the gratitude piece. So probably because of all of these things I'm doing outside of the day-to-day, it does have a positive impact on what I do within work and my role as the chair.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get that. I love it. Yeah, so basically you've almost like you've developed these ways of, you know, as you say, feeding yourself kind of almost like, you know, physically, spiritually, you know, for quality, practically, so that you are then almost like fit enough, you know, you've got the energy and the resources to be able to do it. What are the tips, what are the final tips that you would give to fellow ERG and staff network leaders?
So ERG leaders, don't do it by yourself. Don't think you've got to take on the world by yourself. You know, delegate, utilize the good team that you've got around you, empower the group that you have around you to run with ideas and turn their ideas into reality. And if you don't have senior leadership sponsorship, then start reaching out to some of those executives.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Those are great tips. Yeah, you can't do it by yourself. That is when it will become incredibly draining. Yeah, you can't do it, but you need the support from the top, the senior leaders, and you need the support in the network to get things done. Yeah, 100%. That's a great place for us to leave it, Nicola, because I know that you're busy. You've probably got a full day of to do and schoolwork, because I know that you've got this weekend. So, Nicola, thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you that are watching, thank you as well for joining us. And thank you for watching on the replay. And we will see you next time. Nicola, thank you.
Thank you, Sheryl. Take care.
Perfect. And we are